His name is Frank Sinatra, and everything you think you know about him is what he wanted you to know. The skinny kid from Hoboken, the swooning Bobby Soxers, the Vegas nights with the Rat Pack, that's the story he sold you. But beneath the tuxedo and the confident smile was a man consumed by rage so intense his own friends called it Sinatra's tornadoes. He crawled through the wreckage of failed marriages, political fallouts, and public humiliations. He clawed his way from boxer-turned-fireman's son to the man who had presidents on speed dial. You've heard him sing about flying to the moon, but you've never heard about the nights he spent in darkened rooms with men whose names were only whispered, making deals that would secure his throne in American culture. He sang about love while his heart was hardening with each betrayal and triumph. The voice you adore came from a place of pain you couldn't imagine. So before you think you understand Francis Albert Sinatra, ask yourself, how far would you go to become a legend? What parts of your soul would you trade for immortality? 1915, a baby in Hoboken. Before we begin, kindly let us know in the comments where you're watching from today. And if you enjoy boring American history videos for sleep like this, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more. On a cold day in December 1915, a baby boy was about to arrive in a small upstairs apartment in Hoboken, New Jersey. This baby was Francis Albert Sinatra, who would one day be known to the world as Frank Sinatra. But on December 12, 1915, he was just a newborn fighting to take his first breath. Frank was a big baby, weighing 13.5 pounds, and his birth was very difficult for his mother. The doctor had to use special forceps to help pull him out. Frank finally emerged, but he wasn't breathing at first. His family feared the worst, but Frank's grandmother quickly sprang into action. She gently ran cold water over him until, at last, the tiny baby gasped for air and began to cry. Frank's parents were Italian immigrants. His father, Marty Sinatra, was a boxer-turned-fireman, and his mother, Dolly Sinatra, was a midwife known for her strong will and big heart. Little Frank was their only child. Due to the forceps used during his birth, Frank's left cheek, neck, and ear were scarred, and even one of his eardrums was damaged. He also had other health struggles, like a painful mastoid infection and later acne scars as a teen. Some mean kids called him Scarface, but Frank was determined to prove himself. He was a survivor from the very start. Frank grew up in the 1920s on the lively streets of Hoboken. His family was Catholic, and although times were tough, especially during the Great Depression, his mother worked hard to support him. She even gave him a bit of extra money so he could buy nice clothes. Frank became known as the best-dressed kid in the neighborhood. From a young age, Frank loved music. He admired famous singers like Bing Crosby. For his 15th birthday, Frank received a ukulele, and he began singing at family gatherings. He had a natural ability to learn songs by ear, and though he never learned to read music, his voice stood out. He went to public school in Hoboken, but was only there for a short time, just 47 days, before being expelled for misbehavior. After leaving school, Frank worked odd jobs, a delivery boy, a shipyard worker, and a singing waiter, while performing at local clubs. He even paid for elocution lessons to improve his speech and singing. Bit by bit, young Frank was getting ready for the day the world would hear his voice. Before we jump into the next chapter, just a quick heads up. The visuals in this video add some extra context, but you don't need to watch them to enjoy the stories. So feel free to let this play in the background while you work, chill, or even drift off to sleep with the entire life of Frank Sinatra. Also, if you'd like to help us keep making these videos and get access to exclusive content, plus enjoy everything ad-free, consider supporting us on Patreon You'll find the link in the description and the comments section below. Alright, let's get back to the stories. 1934. A Summer of Love. In the summer of 1934, Frank was 18 years old, working as a lifeguard in Long Branch, New Jersey. That's where he met Nancy Barbato, a sweet, smiling girl from a nearby town. They hit it off quickly. Frank and Nancy spent the summer getting to know each other along the beach. Frank would sometimes serenade her with his ukulele as the waves rolled in. They promised to stay together after summer ended. Nancy believed in Frank's dream, and Frank felt lucky to have her. Though they couldn't marry yet, Frank knew he would one day make her his wife. 1935, the Hoboken Four. In 1935, Frank joined a singing group called the Hoboken Four. Thanks to a push from his mum, and the fact that Frank owned a car. That same year, they entered Major Beau's Amateur Hour, a national radio contest. The Hoboken Four won the contest with 40,000 votes, and they began performing on radio and on the road. Frank started to stand out. Listeners loved his voice, and audiences cheered especially for him. It became clear that Frank was more than just part of a group. He was meant to shine on his own. After their tour ended, he left the group and returned home, ready to pursue a solo career. 1939. Big breaks and a wedding. In 1939, Frank worked as a singing waiter at a club called the Rustic Cabin. Some of his performances were broadcast on a New York radio station. One night, a saxophone player named Frank Main arranged for Frank to record a song. That song, Our Love, became Frank's first studio recording. Not long after, Harry James, a trumpet player and bandleader, heard Frank on the radio and offered him a job. In June 1939, Frank signed a 2-year contract with the Harry James Orchestra, earning $75 a week. He recorded his first commercial single, From the Bottom of My Heart. It wasn't a big hit, but it was another step forward. On July 31st, 1939, Frank fulfilled his personal dream. He married Nancy Barbato in Jersey City, New Jersey. They were young, in love, and hopeful for the future. Frank's voice was beginning to be heard, and now he had his partner by his side. Frank Sinatra's story was only beginning. He had overcome a difficult birth, rough teenage years, and hard work to start making a name for himself. With his voice, determination, and Nancy by his side, Frank was ready to take on the world. 1940, a new band, a new baby, a bigger stage. As the year 1940 began, Frank Sinatra was still just 24 years old. But big things were already happening. After singing with the Harry James Orchestra for a few months, Frank received an offer that would change his life. A much more famous band leader named Tommy Dorsey invited Frank to join his band. Tommy Dorsey was one of the biggest names in big band music at the time. He played the trombone and led a smooth, elegant orchestra that packed dance halls across America. Frank knew this was his chance to sing on the biggest stages. So, in November 1939, he left Harry James's band and joined Tommy Dorsey's orchestra. It was a bold move, but the right one. Tommy Dorsey's music was polished, and Frank's soft, romantic voice fit perfectly. Frank made his first public appearance with Dorsey's band on January 26, 1940. At the Coronado Theater in Rockford, Illinois. That night, he stepped in front of the microphone and sang Stardust. The audience loved him. People whispered, "Who is that new singer?" Frank had a way of holding a note just a little longer than others, making the words sound emotional and real. His voice seemed to float through the air like a soft breeze. Only a few days earlier, something even more special had happened. On January 20th, 1940, Frank and Nancy welcomed their first child, a baby girl named Nancy Sinatra. Little Nancy was born while her father's career was just taking off. Frank was a new dad, traveling with a famous orchestra and singing in cities across the country. He missed home sometimes, but he wrote letters and called whenever he could. Back in New Jersey, Nancy was caring for their baby and cheering Frank on from afar. In the summer of 1940, Frank recorded a song with Tommy Dorsey's band that would make him a star. The song was called "I'll Never Smile Again." It was a slow, dreamy tune about heartbreak and longing. Frank sang it with a special backup group called the Pied Pipers, and his voice was full of tenderness. When the song was released, something amazing happened. It reached #1 on the Billboard chart and stayed there for 12 weeks. This was Frank's first major hit. It played on radios all over the country. People gathered around their living room radios to hear it. Young women swooned. Men admired his style. Music critics praised his emotional delivery. He wasn't just another singer anymore. Frank Sinatra had arrived. Frank stayed with Tommy Dorsey's band for a few more years, performing across the country and recording dozens of songs. During this time, he carefully studied Dorsey's techniques, how he breathed, how he controlled his trombone's tone. Frank applied those same skills to his singing, learning how to take deep, quiet breaths so the sound came out effortlessly. This helped Frank create what became known as the Sinatra sound, a smooth, flowing, almost whispery way of singing that made listeners feel like he was singing just to them. Every time he sang a romantic ballad, people paused to listen. They said it felt like he understood what their heart was going through. By now, fans began calling him the Voice. In theaters and ballrooms, girls screamed when he stepped onto the stage. They called it Sinatramania. Some fans even fainted during his performances. Frank kept his cool. He wasn't loud or flashy. He just stood there in a nice suit, closed his eyes, and let the music do the talking. By 1942, Frank had become so popular that he began thinking about starting a solo career. It was a difficult decision. Tommy Dorsey had helped make him famous, but Frank wanted to take full control of his future. There's a famous story that when Frank told Dorsey he wanted to leave, Dorsey said no, but Frank insisted. Some say Frank bought his way out of the contract. Others say he leaned on some tough friends to make it happen. Whatever the truth, by 1943, Frank was a solo artist, and soon he had a new home, Columbia Records. 1943 to 1944, the radio star and a standard. At Columbia, Frank worked closely with Axel Stordahl, a talented arranger who helped him create a more intimate sound. Instead of big, brassy orchestras, Frank now sang with gentle strings and quiet horns, letting his voice be the star. He also became a radio regular, performing every week on shows like Your Hit Parade. On April 19, 1944, Frank recorded his first version of a timeless song. It Had to Be You. It was part of a radio broadcast, and Frank's version was warm and full of charm. Listeners fell in love with his gentle style. Frank was now one of the most recognizable voices in America. He was on the radio, in magazines, and on stage. Every girl wanted to dance to his songs. Every guy wished he had his cool style. While Frank's fame was growing, so was his family. On May 10, 1944, Frank Sinatra Jr. was born. Frank Jr. would eventually follow in his father's footsteps as a musician. And later, on June 5, 1948, Frank and Nancy welcomed their third child, Tina Sinatra. Frank tried to balance his booming career with being a father and husband. It wasn't always easy. He was traveling constantly, recording, appearing on the radio, and filming movies. But at the heart of it all was his music, and his desire to create something lasting. By the end of the 1940s, Frank had gone from a lifeguard in New Jersey to a national sensation. He had fans from coast to coast, millions of records sold, and his name was in lights. Yet the next part of his life would test his heart, challenge his reputation, and take him to the top of both Hollywood and heartbreak. The late 1940s, stardom and struggles. By the late 1940s, Frank Sinatra was a household name across America. He sang softly into microphones on stages and radios, making millions of listeners feel like he was singing directly to them. Fans adored him, and everywhere he went, crowds cheered and screamed. But fame had challenges too. Frank's marriage to Nancy, his childhood sweetheart, was growing strained. He was constantly on tour, traveling from city to city and performing night after night. Sometimes he didn't see his family for weeks. Frank missed important moments, and Nancy felt lonely raising their 3 children. Nancy, Frank Jr., and Tina on her own. Still, Frank loved his family deeply. Whenever he was home, he tried to make those days special. He took his children to parks and movies and sang them songs at bedtime. But behind the scenes, his personal life was becoming complicated. 1950. Trouble at home. In February 1950, Frank and Nancy decided to separate after Frank's affair with a beautiful and famous actress named Ava Gardner became public news. Newspapers printed scandalous stories, and Frank's image as the romantic family man took a hit. Fans were upset. Frank felt deeply guilty for hurting Nancy and his children, but he was also passionately in love with Ava. Nancy and Frank officially divorced in October 1951, though separated. They remained close friends for life, always respectful and kind. Frank continued to provide generously for Nancy and the kids, doing everything he could to support them financially and emotionally. Frank's relationship with Ava Gardner was intense. Ava was beautiful, glamorous, and fiery. They were both strong-willed and emotional people, making their romance stormy and passionate. On November 7, 1951, Frank Sinatra married Ava Gardner in a private ceremony in Pennsylvania. Their marriage was filled with romance and adventure, but also jealousy and arguments. They loved deeply, but their personalities often clashed. Hollywood tabloids eagerly covered their every move, making their private life feel public and stressful. At the same time, Frank's professional life started to crumble. Musical tastes were changing, younger singers were becoming popular, and Frank's style seemed old-fashioned to some listeners. Record sales dropped sharply. His movies weren't hits anymore, and some studios no longer wanted to hire him. Frank was devastated. He felt rejected by the public and worried his career was over. Ava Gardner tried to support him, but their relationship became even more strained by these pressures. By October 1953, Frank and Ava announced they would separate. Their divorce was finalized in 1954. Now Frank Sinatra was alone. His heart was broken and his career had stalled. Many people thought Sinatra's best days were behind him, but Frank had a quiet determination. He was about to make one of the greatest comebacks in American history. 1953. From Here to Eternity. Frank desperately wanted to show the world he could do more than sing. He wanted to be taken seriously as an actor. In 1953, Frank got a role in a Hollywood movie called From Here to Eternity. It was a serious film about soldiers and their struggles during World War II. Frank played a character named Angelo Maggio, a small but memorable part. Frank put his heart into the role, determined to prove himself. When the movie came out, Critics and audiences were amazed. Frank's performance was emotional, sincere, and powerful. He wasn't just a singer anymore, he was a respected actor. In fact, he was so good that he won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor and a Golden Globe in 1953. It was a stunning comeback. Winning the Oscar revitalized Frank's career. Record companies wanted him back, movie studios lined up to cast him, and fans rediscovered their love for him. Frank signed with Capitol Records, a major music company eager to help him return to the top. In 1955, Frank released an album called In the Wee Small Hours. It was deeply personal and emotional, reflecting all the heartache and loneliness he'd recently experienced. Listeners felt every word he sang. The album was a masterpiece, becoming one of Sinatra's greatest achievements. Suddenly, Frank Sinatra was back on top, stronger, wiser, and better than ever. In 1956, Frank Sinatra recorded another iconic album, Songs for Swinging Lovers. Unlike his sad, emotional album from the previous year, this album was upbeat and joyful. It featured happy songs about love and romance. Fans loved hearing Frank so cheerful again. One song, I've Got You Under My Skin, became especially popular. Frank Sinatra was now truly at the peak of his powers. He was America's biggest star again, selling millions of records, starring in hit movies, and performing to sold-out crowds across the country. 1958, two classic albums. By 1958, Frank continued making timeless music. That year, he released two more classic albums, Come Fly With Me and Only the Lonely. The first was an adventurous album filled with songs about traveling to exotic places. The second was another emotional album about loneliness and longing. Both became instant classics. Frank Sinatra was no longer just a popular singer. He was creating music that would last forever. In 1960, Frank did something bold. He decided to leave Capitol Records and start his very own record label called Reprise Records. Frank wanted control over his music, his choices, and his career. Reprise allowed him to make exactly the kind of albums he wanted, and it quickly became known as a label that treated artists fairly and creatively. Frank also began to help other musicians, giving them a home at Reprise. It was a daring move, but it showed Sinatra's independence and his desire to leave a lasting impact on the music industry. Frank Sinatra's comeback in the 1950s showed the world how resilient he was. He learned that fame could fade, that love could be complicated, but that he could always rise again, stronger than before. As the 1960s began, Frank Sinatra stood confidently, ready for another chapter in his remarkable life. He was about to experience more love, more music, and more unforgettable moments that would continue to shape American culture. In the coming years, he'd record iconic hits, find new love, and navigate the changing times of America. 1960, Reprise Records and independence. As the 1960s began, Frank Sinatra had reached a new height of success. Now, at age 44, he was confident, famous, and more independent than ever. In 1960, Frank made an important decision. He left his record company, Capitol Records, and founded his own record label called Reprise Records. This new company gave Frank complete control of his music. For the first time, he could decide exactly how his records sounded and what songs to record. Reprise also allowed Frank to help other artists he respected. Singers like Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., and Bing Crosby eventually joined his label. Fans nicknamed Reprise the house that Sinatra built, celebrating his creativity and vision. 1963, Luck Be a Lady. On July 25, 1963, Frank recorded a song that became one of his most famous recordings ever, "Luck Be a Lady." Originally from the musical Guys and Dolls, Sinatra's version became the song people remembered most. Frank sang with powerful confidence. The song had a swinging beat and a bold style, perfectly matching Sinatra's confident personality. When audiences heard "Luck Be a Lady," they felt energized. Frank's music continued to define American entertainment, both on records and in concert halls. 1964, "The Way You Look Tonight." In early 1964, Frank went into United Recording Studios in Hollywood to record another beloved song, "The Way You Look Tonight." This beautiful, romantic melody highlighted Frank's ability to sing sweetly and intimately. Fans loved how personal his singing felt, almost like he was whispering right to them. The song appeared on his album featuring Academy Award-winning songs, reminding everyone why Sinatra was America's favorite singer. 1965, "September of My Years." By 1965, Frank Sinatra was turning 50, reflecting on his life and career. He recorded an album called "September of My Years," a thoughtful collection of songs about growing older, looking back on youth, and appreciating life's precious moments. It was a mature, emotional album, capturing Frank's thoughtful side perfectly. That same year, Sinatra starred in a television special called Frank Sinatra, A Man and His Music. The show was a huge success, winning an Emmy Award. Audiences loved seeing Sinatra talk openly about his songs, career, and feelings about getting older. It was an honest portrait of a man grateful for life's journey. 1966, "Strangers in the Night" and "New Love." On April 11, 1966, Frank recorded "Strangers in the Night." This romantic song became one of Sinatra's biggest hits, shooting quickly to no. 1 on the Billboard charts. The melody was catchy, the lyrics romantic, and Frank's voice was at its most charming. People everywhere hummed along, making it one of the most recognizable songs of his career. Later that same year, on July 19, 1966, Frank Sinatra married actress Mia Farrow. Mia was much younger than Frank, creating headlines across the country. Their marriage was friendly and affectionate at first, but the age difference, Frank was 50, Mia was just 21, eventually made their relationship complicated. 1967, a beautiful collaboration. In 1967, Sinatra created another masterpiece when he teamed up with Brazilian musician Antonio Carlos Jobim. Their album, called Francis Albert Sinatra and Antonio Carlos Jobim, was soothing and gentle, mixing Sinatra's warm voice with Jobim's soft Brazilian rhythms. Fans found the album relaxing and peaceful, perfect for quiet evenings. The album is still considered one of Sinatra's most beautiful musical collaborations. 1968, musical greatness with Duke Ellington and Sinatra's divorce from Mia Farrow. In 1968, Frank worked with another legendary musician, Duke Ellington, the famous jazz composer and pianist. Together, they recorded the album Francis A. and Edward K. Sinatra admired Ellington deeply, and the album blended Sinatra's vocal magic with Ellington's smooth jazz style. It was another example of Sinatra's ability to connect with other artists and create timeless music. Despite professional success, Sinatra's personal life was once again challenging. His marriage to Mia Farrow, though initially filled with affection, ended in divorce in August 1968. The breakup was peaceful but bittersweet. Both Frank and Mia realized their lives were simply headed in different directions. Frank found comfort in his music and friendships. By now, Sinatra had experienced enough ups and downs to know he could move forward and continue making beautiful music, no matter what life threw at him. 1969 to 1971, Reflections and First Retirement. As the 1960s ended, Frank Sinatra reflected deeply on his life, career, and the changing world around him. Musical tastes were evolving again, and younger audiences had their own new favorites. Frank felt it was time to step back from performing. In 1971, Frank Sinatra announced his retirement from music. It was a big surprise for fans around the world. He chose to say goodbye after recording a song called My Way, which quickly became his signature tune. My Way spoke powerfully about looking back on life proudly, with no regrets. It was the perfect farewell, heartfelt and sincere. Frank's retirement announcement marked the end of an unforgettable era. He had dominated American entertainment, influenced countless musicians, and touched millions of listeners with his timeless songs. The 1960s had shown Sinatra's versatility: romantic ballads, upbeat swing, international sounds, and meaningful reflections on life itself. Yet, retirement would not last forever. Frank would eventually find his way back to performing. For now, he chose to pause, rest, and appreciate the incredible journey he had traveled. Frank Sinatra's golden 1960s was a period of legendary music, personal highs and lows, and lasting cultural impact. His voice continued to bring warmth, comfort, and meaning to listeners everywhere. 1973, Sinatra's return to music. Frank Sinatra had stepped away from performing in 1971, announcing his retirement after decades of thrilling audiences. But Frank soon discovered that life without music felt incomplete. Singing had always been his passion, and he missed the stage, the lights, and the connection with his fans. In 1973, after 2 quiet years, Sinatra decided to return to performing. Fans were delighted. Sinatra's comeback concert was a huge success, with audiences warmly welcoming him back. Frank realized he truly belonged on stage, sharing his timeless voice and music with the world. 1976, marriage to Barbara Marx and the Order of Malta. Frank Sinatra's personal life was also entering a happy new chapter. After several years of friendship and companionship, Sinatra married Barbara Marx on July 11, 1976. Barbara was elegant, sophisticated, and caring, providing Frank with the steady partnership he deeply desired. Their wedding took place at the beautiful Sunnylands estate in Rancho Mirage, California. Friends and family celebrated joyfully as the couple exchanged their vows. Barbara brought stability and warmth to Sinatra's life. They traveled together, entertained friends, and enjoyed quiet evenings at home. Frank finally found comfort and lasting love after years of turbulent relationships. That same year, Frank Sinatra was honored in a very special way. He was inducted into the Catholic Sovereign Military Order of Malta, a prestigious honor acknowledging his lifelong charity and generosity. Frank was quietly proud of this recognition, grateful that he could use his fame and fortune to help others in need. Late 1970s, Sinatra, the entertainer. Throughout the late 1970s, Sinatra focused on entertaining audiences with big concerts in Las Vegas and around the world. He often performed with close friends Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr., famously known as the Rat Pack. Together they sang, joked, and entertained thousands, their friendship adding warmth to every performance. Frank was older now, but his voice was still powerful, rich, and emotional. He sang classic favorites, making every listener feel a deep connection. Audiences felt as if Frank Sinatra was singing directly to them, his voice filling their hearts with memories and warmth. 1980, New York, New York. In 1980, Sinatra recorded one of the greatest songs of his entire career, New York, New York. Originally written for a film, Sinatra's version made it an anthem for an entire city, and soon, for the world. Sinatra sang with bold confidence and excitement, capturing the big dreams, energy, and spirit of New York City. Whenever Sinatra performed New York audiences felt inspired and energized. The song became a powerful symbol of hope, ambition, and possibility. Even today, Sinatra's version is played everywhere, from celebrations to sporting events, as a joyful reminder of dreams come true. 1980s, honoring Sinatra's legacy. During the 1980s, Frank Sinatra was celebrated as an American treasure. He continued performing at major venues, traveling globally, and delighting millions of fans. Sinatra had become more than just a singer. He was a living legend. In 1983, Sinatra performed a memorable concert at Madison Square Garden, captured on TV and attended by thousands. Audiences around the world saw Sinatra's charisma, warmth, and unforgettable style. He was awarded numerous honors for his lifetime of contributions to music and entertainment. And even younger generations discovered and admired his timeless songs. 1984, Sinatra and Friends. In 1984, Sinatra teamed up again with his friends, Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr., for a special series of concerts. The trio performed in big cities across America, delighting crowds with their easy camaraderie, music, and humor. Fans cherished seeing these three legends together again, performing and sharing stories, laughter, and music from decades of friendship. Late 1980s, reflections of Sinatra. As Sinatra approached his 70s, he began reflecting deeply on his life. He still loved performing, but his schedule became lighter, allowing more time at home with Barbara and family. He treasured quiet evenings, good company, and the warmth of friendships he had built over the years. Despite slowing down, Sinatra's legend continued to grow. His music was rediscovered by new generations. Young singers admired him deeply, and many famous musicians spoke openly about how Sinatra had inspired them. He wasn't just a part of American entertainment history, he had shaped it. In 1989, Sinatra's legacy was celebrated with special concerts and televised tributes. Big-name stars gathered to honor him, singing his famous songs and expressing gratitude for his immense influence. Sinatra graciously accepted these honors, moved by the recognition of his lifetime achievements. Frank Sinatra's career was an incredible journey, from a humble start in Hoboken, New Jersey, to becoming one of the most beloved entertainers of all time. His voice had touched generations, his songs forever woven into the fabric of American culture. Early 1990s, a lifetime honored. As the 1990s began, Frank Sinatra was now in his late 70s, slowing down physically but still deeply loved by fans around the world. Sinatra spent these later years mostly with his wife Barbara, enjoying quieter days at home and reflecting on his incredible journey through life. In 1994, Frank was honored with the prestigious Grammy Legend Award. Recognizing his lasting impact on music and popular culture, it was a powerful moment. Sinatra accepted the honor with quiet humility, deeply grateful for the life he had led and the people he had touched along the way. 1995, Sinatra's final performances. By 1995, Frank Sinatra was nearly 80 years old and his health was declining. Singing and traveling had become challenging. Sinatra knew it was time to gently step away from the stage and rest. That year, Sinatra gave what would become his final public performances. Each performance was filled with deep emotion, both for Frank and the audience. His voice, though aged, still carried the warmth, sincerity, and charm that had made him famous. Audiences listened closely, treasuring every note. His final concert was quiet and heartfelt, filled with applause, tears, and immense gratitude from fans who knew they were seeing history. After this performance, Frank quietly stepped away from public life, gracefully retiring and spending his remaining days at home with loved ones. In his later years, Sinatra enjoyed simple pleasures. He spent time at his comfortable home in Palm Springs, California, surrounded by friends, family, and memories. Sinatra loved gardening, watching films, sharing meals with loved ones, and quietly reflecting on his long career and personal experiences. Barbara Sinatra was by his side, caring deeply for him as he faced health challenges. Frank cherished these moments of peace after a lifetime of travel, fame, and hard work. 1998. Sinatra's final days. In the late 1990s, Frank Sinatra's health worsened. He struggled with heart problems and breathing difficulties, quietly resting at home. Sinatra faced these challenges with dignity and calmness, accepting the gentle pace life now demanded. Friends and family often visited, sharing stories, laughter, and love. Sinatra, though quieter and more fragile, remained kind-hearted and deeply appreciative of those around him. On May 14, 1998, Frank Sinatra peacefully passed away in Los Angeles, California, at the age of 82. The news traveled quickly, and fans around the world felt a deep sense of loss. Sinatra had not only entertained millions, he had also touched their hearts deeply. America paused to honor this remarkable life. Sinatra's death was front-page news, and radio stations played his songs non-stop, reminding everyone why his music was so beloved. Friends, family, and fans mourned quietly, reflecting on his incredible legacy. Frank Sinatra's funeral was a private, respectful event attended by his closest friends, family, and fellow entertainers. Famous musicians and actors spoke about Sinatra's generosity, talent, and warmth. They remembered him not only as a legendary singer, but as a caring friend who always supported others quietly and generously. In the days following Sinatra's passing, millions of fans listened to his songs, watched his films, and shared their favorite memories. People realized just how deeply Sinatra had influenced American culture. His music, his style, his generosity, and his charm had forever shaped the entertainment world. Sinatra's timeless legacy and his greatest lesson. Frank Sinatra's voice remains timeless. Decades after his passing, his songs continue to resonate with listeners, reminding them of love, hope, friendship, and dreams. Sinatra's music continues to be used in films, TV shows, and celebrations. Young artists continue to be inspired by his artistry, studying his recordings to learn from the master himself. Today, Frank Sinatra is remembered not just as an entertainer, but as a true cultural icon. His journey, from humble beginnings in Hoboken to worldwide fame, stands as a powerful reminder of perseverance, talent, and passion. Beyond the music and fame, Frank Sinatra's life taught an important lesson: that every person, no matter where they start in life, has the power to dream big and achieve greatness. Sinatra faced countless challenges, difficult childhood moments, career ups and downs, broken hearts, but each time he chose to move forward with courage and determination. He showed everyone that setbacks aren't endings, but chances to come back even stronger. Sinatra lived boldly, loved deeply, and sang passionately. That is perhaps his greatest legacy: the reminder to always follow our hearts, face challenges bravely, and cherish every moment we're given. Even after Frank Sinatra passed away, his music continued to touch millions. His songs never faded. In fact, they became even more special. Sinatra sang timeless melodies about love, dreams, joy, and heartache. These emotions are universal, meaning they speak deeply to every new generation. Today, Sinatra's classics like Fly Me to the Moon, My Way, The Way You Look Tonight, and New York remain beloved all around the world. They still appear in movies, TV shows, weddings, and celebrations. Sinatra's voice comforts, inspires, and lifts spirits, reminding us of simpler, kinder times. Sinatra's influence on new generations. Frank Sinatra influenced countless artists who came after him. Famous singers like Michael Bublé, Harry Connick Jr., Tony Bennett, and Diana Krall all speak about Sinatra as their greatest musical inspiration. These artists carry Sinatra's tradition forward, performing songs in his classic style, keeping his memory alive. Many young singers study Sinatra's technique, listening closely to his recordings to understand the magic in his voice. The careful timing, smooth phrasing, and heartfelt emotion he brought to every song. Sinatra's legacy lives on through their performances. Sinatra's impact on popular culture. Frank Sinatra's life truly symbolizes the American dream. Born into a humble, working-class family in Hoboken, New Jersey, Sinatra rose through determination, talent, and hard work. He overcame early challenges to achieve extraordinary success. Sinatra showed that anyone, no matter where they start, can dream big and achieve greatness with passion and perseverance. His story still inspires people today, reminding us all to believe in our dreams, no matter how distant or difficult they seem. Sinatra's journey offers hope and courage, encouraging us to never give up. Frank Sinatra didn't just shape music, he also influenced popular culture profoundly. He was more than a singer. He was a cultural icon. Sinatra helped create the image of cool sophistication, wearing stylish suits and hats, carrying himself with charm and confidence. Movies, television shows, and commercials still reference Sinatra's style and songs, recognizing him as the ultimate symbol of classic elegance and effortless charisma. Even today, people admire Sinatra's timeless style, his sharp suits, sleek tuxedos, and iconic fedora hats, reflecting his lasting impact on fashion and popular culture. Sinatra and the Rat Pack legacy. Frank Sinatra and his friends Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Joey Bishop, and Peter Lawford, known as the Rat Pack, defined an era. They were entertainers who symbolized friendship, humor, style, and charisma. The Rat Pack became legendary not only for their incredible talent, but also for their deep friendship and lively personalities. Their performances in Las Vegas and beyond became famous, showing America how friends could entertain together joyfully, making everyone feel welcome. Sinatra and the Rat Pack legacy remind us of friendship's importance, laughing together, supporting each other, and sharing life's joys. Please let us know what you learned from the entire life of Frank Sinatra and his legacy on Americans, and share with us the country you're watching it from in the comments section below. And it would mean the world to us if you could like, subscribe, and share this video to your loved ones. Thank you everyone for watching. Sleep tight.